Hello, everyone. Welcome to another NFL team preview for the 2020 season. Today, we're talking about the New York Football Jets. I don't know why I said that. Let's begin. Okay, so as funny as the memes were last year with Sam Darnold missing a bunch of time with mono, we need to hope that that doesn't happen again. And let's hope that he doesn't have to quarantine for different reasons this year. Let's hope that nobody has to. But Sam Darnold, especially, because as we saw last year, this is a complete dumpster fire when he's not under center. Credit Luke Falk to what he was able to try to do at least, but it's clear that Sam Darnold needs to be playing. Otherwise, this team is not competitive. Anyway, so for the 2019 season, the New York Jets went 7-9 overall. They started off really bad when they didn't have Sam Darnold, but there was a little bit of resurgence when he returned. So they finished with at least a respectable record. The problem is the offense wasn't very good last year. 32nd overall in the league, that's dead last. They were 29th in passing, 31st in rushing. Defense was better, 8th overall in the league. They were 17th against the pass, 2nd against the run. Adam Gase enters his second season as the New York Jets head coach, career record 30-34. And taking a look at a snapshot for the previous 4 years, in 2018 they were 4-12, 2017 and 2016, both years they finished 5-11. And in 2015 they finished with a winning record of 10-6, but of course it was one of those mathematical formula years that the Jets did not make the playoffs, and a 10-6 team had to watch from their couches. And it's just, that happens. I remember a year that happened to the Dolphins. It's weird that it can happen in this league. Just that's the playoff format. You got to live with it. So, as we talked already briefly in the beginning of this episode, the Jets are a different team when Sam Darnold is not under center. Sam Darnold should be playing this year. There's no reason to think mono is going to happen again, but it's kind of a different team that he's used to, I would imagine, because we have 4 new starters on the offensive line. And the part about that scares me is that we don't have a normal offseason for these guys to sort of gel and get together. So that will be an interesting thing to watch. And having said that, let's just jump right into the starting projected depth chart, where we have 4 new offensive starters on the offensive line. Alex Lewis at left guard is the only returning starter, according to my notes, or at least to my knowledge. Fant comes over in free agency. Connor McGovern comes over in free agency from Denver. Van Roten is another free agent, and Mekhi Becton was their first overall draft pick this year in the 2020 draft. So we've got a rookie at right tackle, 3 free agents, and 1 returning starter. I don't know how that's going to gel without a preseason, and as of right now, as of this recording anyway, the NFL Players Union has at least released a statement/agreement that they wish to cancel the remaining 2 preseason games that are currently on the schedule. The NFL has already cut the preseason in half, eliminating week 1 and 4. Now it looks like the whole thing is in danger. So I'm not sure what the plan is for Adam Gase to get these guys working and to get them in sync. And take it from a Vikings fan, when you don't have an offensive line that is rolling as a unit, the season is a disaster. I remember the year that we had a lot of offensive line struggles with Sam Bradford under center, and despite him being really productive under center, Sam Bradford was, we still finished. I think it was 8-8 that year, and of course we had that one 8-7-1 season with Kirk Cousins. So offensive line is critical in this league. Don't let anybody fool you. We've already talked about Sam Darnold being under center. This is, of course, a critical 3rd year for him. You know, I kind of always hanker on that point where the 2nd and 3rd years are critical in development. I think this one might be the biggest one of them all, because if he doesn't show improvement and we don't make any progress, I don't understand why the Jets would be willing to continue on with him, especially when you have Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields looming in the next draft. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's crazy. They just got Darnold a couple years ago. And, well, I have since changed my tune on that aspect, given that what the Cardinals have done, drafting Josh Rosen with a 10th overall pick and then kicking him to the curb next year when they took Kyler Murray 1 overall. So there's precedent for this to happen. Sam Darnold could wind up on another team sooner than we think. Starting running back, I penciled in Le'Veon Bell, but they do have some other options. I don't think anybody on this roster is going to compete for that position, and if Le'Veon Bell can return to his Pittsburgh form, this offense should be a lot better. But they also do have Kenneth Dixon. Frank Gore is still around, apparently, and they drafted Michael Perine out of Florida. Starting tight end Chris Herndon, who should be a dark horse for fantasy leagues. Little tip there. And the wide receiver group is in kind of the same boat that the offensive line is, where this is a completely retooled unit. We have returning starter Jamison Crowder. And then the newbies are Rashad Perriman and Denzel Mims, their 2nd round draft pick. Braxton Berrios is also on the roster, and Josh Doxson is also on the roster. A couple other journeymen, Doxson being kind of a failed experiment in Washington, who's a former first-round pick from the Laquan Treadwell draft, which is turning out to be kind of a bust when it comes to wide receivers, considering that it was Corey Coleman, Josh Doxson, Laquan Treadwell, and the only one out of the first round that seems to have made a name for himself, at least for now, has been Will Fuller. So he's over on the team this year, and they've lost Robbie Anderson to the Carolina Panthers via free agency, and Quincy Enunwa can't play this year due to injury. So shortened season or not, he's not available, and he's from what I've read, his injury is pretty serious. His career in football could be done. So Darnold is going to be relying on a completely new offensive line to protect him, and a bunch of new receivers to throw to, which all of this whole unit has to get in sync without the advantages of having a normal offseason and a full slate of preseason games. And that it just strikes me as very concerning on how that's going to be manageable. It might take a few games for this team to gel and for the offense to do better. And frankly, there's nowhere to go but up when you finish dead last in the league in total offense. But you know, it's possible to repeat or just be just as bad. You know, 30 going from dead last to 30th is an improvement, but it's not much of an improvement. It's like, hey, I just realized I need some sugar on these frosted mini wheats. All right, moving on to the defense, which is going to have another set of headaches for us to talk about. On defensive line, we've got Anderson, McClendon, Quentin Williams, and Basham. For your linebackers, CJ Mosley, Williamson, and Jenkins. And then in the secondary, we have Desir, May, Jackson, and Wilson. And as you will probably realize, I did not include Jamal Adams in this depth chart starting projections because the way that he talks about wanting out of New York, it seems like it's probably going to happen, and we're going to have another real-world example of Adam Gase losing a player who goes on to most likely do better things out from under his umbrella. So the defense was good last year, 8th overall, but the problem is that they gave up too many big plays in the secondary, and when you lose Jamal Adams, I'm sorry, that doesn't really give me a vote of confidence that it's going to get better. Against the run, they should still be pretty strong. Quentin Williams should improve in his second year. But for everything else, it's kind of a wait-and-see game for the defense, and a lot's going to depend on Jamal Adams being there. And if he's not, what could they get in exchange for him if they do trade him? So we'll have to find out. But I think I've been kind of a negative Nancy on this team for this whole episode, and you'll have to excuse me for that. But I think one of the things that Jets fans should keep in mind is you had a really good draft. Mekhi Becton, who else did you get? Ashton Davis, you could probably pencil him as a starter. I have Jackson right now just because he's the veteran. There was Mekhi Becton and Denzel Mims we've already talked about. Jabari Zuniga was another one. Cameron Clark. And James Morgan was an interesting pick, the quarterback, because he kind of had some late draft hype a couple days before the draft. I didn't really see anything spectacular on his tape, but at the same time, maybe he's a better backup than Luke Falk. So, you know, the draft, I think this team is built to at least get better if Adam Gase can get out of his own way. I got to admit, I'm not the biggest Adam Gase fan when it comes to NFL coaches, and I said that before when I did the preseason hot seat rankings. So the jury's still out, at least for me, on Adam Gase, especially after seeing so many of his former players go on to other teams and do well. Case in point, Ryan Tannehill, Jarvis Landry, Kenyon Drake, just to name a few. So, but let's talk about the schedule for the 2020 Jets, starting off on the road against the Bills, then you got the 49ers at home, a road game against the Colts, and then home games against the Broncos and Cardinals, a road game against the Chargers, Bills come home, and then you go to the Kansas City Chiefs to end out the first half of the season. Is it a difficult schedule? Yes, because, I mean, we've talked a lot about the AFC East teams and their schedules this year, and getting matched up with the divisions that they did is going to make things a little bit more challenging than they're probably used to. To open the second half, we have the Patriots, and then an away game against the Dolphins by Week 11, home game against the Dolphins, home game against the Raiders, back-to-back road games with the Seahawks and Rams, and then we have Week 16 game against the Browns, and finishing off at home against the Patriots. So are they going to be playing spoiler for the Patriots this season in the final home game of the season, or are they going to be trying to win something for themselves? That is the question. And after this season, if they don't improve, if we finish with another record that's less than 7-9, Is Adam Gase still the head coach, and is Sam Darnold still the quarterback? Those are a lot of questions that we're going to find out this year, and we're going to find out how good they are at retooling an offensive line. And I think we probably have that figured out by the time we get to the Broncos game, because the 49ers, the Colts, and of course, the Bills aren't no small potatoes either, but the 49ers defensive line is one of the scariest units on the planet. So we'll find out by then whether or not this offensive line is good enough to keep Sam Darnold protected and upright and on the field. And that's going to do it for this episode. Looking forward to the Jets season and see how they manage an off season of unknown and loss. Have a good one.